Superman and Omni-Man have some of the most iconic villains we've ever seen. But this begs the question, what would happen if these two gods had to swap villains? Would the villains get destroyed, or would the heroes? Well, today, I'll be answering that question. First up in the group of Superman's iconic villains would be John Corbin, the dastardly Metallo. In most depictions, the character is straightforward enough. A criminal has his body replaced with metal and is powered by kryptonite. John Corbin's entire approach to being a villain is using his kryptonite-powered chest to beat the hell out of Superman. Notably, he was one of the first to fight Superman and Superman/Batman public enemies, both the animated movie and its comic counterpart. In a world where Nolan has to come face to face with someone such as Metallo, you have to ask yourself if there's any possible back and forth between the two. Kryptonite is just a rock to that of Omni-Man. For better or worse, he could crush Metallo into a metal cube and call it a day.
It's a weapon. It's a rock. A mineral capable of weakening Kryptonian cells.
That's an easy villain for Omni-Man to topple, as John Corbin may have some strength, but if he doesn't have that edge. There are more challenges though. It doesn't all stop at Metallo. But what about Superman squaring off with one of Omni-Man's villains? Well, firstly, we've got the Mauler twins. The Mauler twins are two geniuses and clones, though neither is ever quite sure who's the real one and who is the clone. They have made a variety of things over the years to oppose not just Omni-Man, but other heroes as well, serving as a thorn in the side of Invincible, Robot, and even Oliver Grayson. Their technical mind has allowed them to perfect cloning bodies, whether that would be through making clones of themselves or even providing Robot with a clone of Rex Blow to reside in. Their understanding of physiology nearly allowed them to control Immortal if he wasn't so angry to resist the collar.
Activate the collar, Immortal! You're gonna destroy Robot and the new Guardians of the Globe for us!
They have a combined brain power to give the Man of Tomorrow a real test. Superman versus the Mauler twins is pretty funny. There isn't much of a threat to be had other than their technological prowess coming into play. However, if they don't have a simple idea as to what kryptonite is, the Maulers wouldn't be able to dent Superman, who outmatches them in strength, speed, and a laundry list of everything else. For villains of Omni-Man, they'd be light work for the Man of Tomorrow. Now back to the other side of things. Another Superman villain that could prove an issue for Omni-Man is that of Brainiac. Whether he's depicted as the being from the planet Kalu who decided he wanted to have knowledge of everything, or depicted as the AI supercomputer of planet Krypton, who is responsible for its destruction in some form, Brainiac is an intellectual and he is ruthless.
My point of origin was 1,000 light years removed from Mars on the planet Kolu. I am Brainiac.
Taking a city from a planet and then taking out said planet. He is not someone to be toiled with or taken lightly, with the odds being wherever he goes, it is in the name of raising his intelligence. I personally think he will be a fun one to speculate in this villain swap. Omni-Man versus Brainiac is a much more interesting matchup than a Metallo fight because you have both men who have one MO, Earth. If it was early on in Nolan's time on Earth, he would have probably been quite aware of a civilian taker in Brainiac, the scary being that comes around taking samples and blowing up planets. Brainiac did capture Supergirl's home city of Kandor. There would be great ideological conversations between the two and a quest to establish right and wrong in their approach. The analytical Brainiac who thinks he should possess all knowledge of every planet, and the Darwinistic Nolan and his belief that a planet can remain but if it is fit to survive. They have a very interesting potential dynamic. The endless Brainiac drones and the potential battle between the two could be visually appealing. As well, would Nolan even bother to save the captured cities from the Collector of Worlds?
I collect worlds, preserving their essential knowledge to enhance my intellect, and then I discard the remnants.
Whether it's pre-redemption or post-redemption, it doesn't really matter. Nolan likes to go in swinging, so who knows? Odds are he would manage to defeat Brainiac, but not without a great deal of destruction. Back on the flip side, where we have the Lizard League. The Lizard League, a group of villains based on snakes, and they're also fairly cruel. Based on a pastiche of Serpent Society and the Royal Flush Gang. They have notoriously gone after stuff such as a nuclear missile silo, and they've demolished many along their way.
You got any instructions, boss?
Get the soda.
The king has a plan.
Those nuclear blast doors.
The Lizard League opposed the likes of the Guardians of the Globe, so a group taking on solely Superman would mean an outnumbered Big Blue Boy Scout. An interesting matchup indeed, purely for the numbers advantage. Superman with the Lizard League is sort of like if Superman had to fight the Royal Flush Gang. Or a better example is when Superman fought Manchester Black and the Elite. It's something he could do handily usually, but maybe once in a while, they'd cause some real trouble. If they were to try and launch nukes, Superman would be faced with a real genuine crisis caused by the League. They're not just one person, or twins. They're a handful of people, so it'd be be easy to at least keep Superman occupied. Though it's Superman, so with enough grit and heart, even with the Lizard League's worst, Clark would usually prevail. It's not a challenge for Superman, but I'd prove a little difficult from time to time. As for Omni-Man though, let's finally see him with Superman's big league villains.
You don't seem to understand. Earth isn't yours to conquer.
Alexander Luthor, sometimes just Lex Luthor, sometimes Lex Luthor Jr., in whatever depiction, is one of the greatest minds in the DC universe, and maybe just any comic universe. Whether he acts on his poorer impulses, such as keeping a kryptonite ring on his person, or not, such as trying to win over Metropolis as a hero with his own S on his chest, his goal has always been to prove humanity and humans are superior to that of Superman. Whether he does that through a hands-on approach or a hands-off approach squarely depends on how he feels on any given day. One of the smartest minds on Earth and an overall evil guy, when push comes to shove, Luthor serves a similar role to Brainiac in that of a brains versus brawn deal, but Lex has that moral intrigue, feeling superior to the alien that has come to play. A Lex Luthor and Omni-Man rivalry would be very interesting. If Lex were to serve as a villain for Omni-Man, there would be a heavy emphasis on Lex wanting to prove the truth about the Viltrums and their motivation.
You have the footage?
Yes. Let's take a look.
Lord over the planet as the last son of Krypton.
Take as many wives as you can.
He would be one of the humans to figure out anything Nolan would have been hiding prior to his positive turn. Building his warsuit to try and compete with whatever Nolan can do, there would be a real chance to see how Nolan can compete with someone who has figured him out. I think of all the Superman villains, Luthor would have Omni-Man active in some great stories. Omni-Man would tend to come out on top though, as Luthor tends to approach everything with a big hubris, to the point where he usually dooms himself to fail. Back with the other alien though, Superman finally gets to see the big leagues from Omni-Man's side of things. Thrag, the leader of the Viltrum Empire, is someone who is ruthless in his quest to rebuild Viltrum's population. As well, he wants nothing more than to keep himself on top of the pecking order. Essentially a conqueror more than a leader, Thrag has been a pain to Omni-Man as someone who keeps him from his birthright essentially. As well, having his proverbial boot on Nolan's neck and trying to keep him in line. He's probably the most physically imposing in terms of the potential villains. Superman having the villainous Grand Regent Thrag to contend with is something that would add a fun ripple to Superman's usual cast of villains. Thrag is in many ways a similar character to General Zod in the sense he wants to do what he finds is best for Viltrum.
These lawmakers, with their endless debates, have led Krypton to ruin. Then join me. Help me save our race.
He's stuck in his ways and he thinks his path to the future is the only one that could provide success. Thrag would offer an ideological villain for Superman who challenges Clark on his views. Thrag comes from an endangered but powerful species similar to Superman and would point out that Superman should understand wanting to preserve and protect the last of his people. While Superman would have to shrug off that kind of argument and fight the physically imposing Thrag, it would be the most challenging thing Superman has done from Omni-Man's cast of opponents, and maybe physically they'd come real close in blows. Thrag being the one to end Nolan in the comics means he'd offer quite a fight. However, it's been shown he doesn't exactly hold up well in the sun, something Superman can do quite well. Their battles would be great, but Superman would come out on top unless the region found kryptonite and fought dirty. Though Superman would find the means to topple him, and Thrag would be the worst thing to happen to Superman from the Invincible universe. Coming back to Omni-Man though, he'd really begin to see what true suffering could be like when coming face to face with Doomsday. Doomsday is the ultimate killer, so to speak, a being that can lose, but when he does, he comes back immune to how he lost the last time. Shoot him in the head and he'll come back with bulletproof bone covering where he was shot. He adapts to anything necessary. He has given our Man of Steel the biggest loss of his career when they threw down in the groundbreaking Death of Superman comic book. Doomsday surely lives up to his name, and frighteningly so. Omni-Man with a Doomsday to fight is Omni-Man in a fight for his life.
Answer me!
Superman's entire battle was about how he got outclassed by Doomsday. With not as many powers, Nolan would simply have to use his wits and strategy to try and win. There's no sun resurrection for Omni-Man. If he can get outclassed in the long run by the ultimate weapon, he would find himself consistently on the back pedal. Even if he managed to kill him, Doomsday would eventually come back. In a world where Omni-Man has Doomsday as a villain, he's seeing an end to his reign as Earth's protector very swiftly. Omni-Man would die at Doomsday's hand, whether in their first fight or somewhere down the line. There are other powerful beings that would give Nolan a real challenge, a godly challenge. But first, back with Superman. Now, if Thrag served as a real strong antagonist threat to Nolan, when Nolan went bad, Cecil breathing down his neck was his own little antagonist on Earth. Cecil Stedman is the director of the Global Defense Agency, someone with his fingerprints across all the superhero networks and someone who has his eyes on everything. He was who initially formed Nolan into Omni-Man, keeping his eye on him at all times.
So we'll let him help. You saw how strong he is. As long as he saves lives, I don't give a damn about his motivations.
but track his movements.
If Superman were in that place, Cecil would serve as the Amanda Waller foil for the Man of Steel. Superman is never as keen to work for the government, strange the Dark Knight characterization aside. So while Superman wouldn't turn evil and kill, he wouldn't give out a helping hand and always find Cecil questioning why Superman wouldn't lend out to him as much as other heroes. A different kind of villain, sure, but not all villains are out to destroy the Earth. However, this last villain Nolan would find himself facing is the new god of Apocalypse. The most dangerous being Superman has arguably crossed paths with, Darkseid.
I have turned 100,000 worlds to dust. I will stride across their bones.
Uxix ascended to the throne of Apocalypse and began a hunt for the mighty anti-life equation. With the Omega sanction on his side and the name Darkseid now his title, his war on life is something Superman doesn't take lightly, and they have done battles on countless occasions. Recently in the DC KO event, which I, your humble speaker, have been enjoying, these several villains are some of the more notable to contend with the Man of Steel. Omni-Man and Darkseid are in many ways both conquestors. Darkseid is known for raising hell in his quest for the anti-life equation, and Nolan has gone planet to planet trying to take them over and bolster Viltrum's empire. If Darkseid were to be his villain, there would be no real bolstering for Nolan. Darkseid's Omega beams alone would be something Nolan has never had to deal with before, and even without a real power set other than his strength and durability, Nolan is outgunned in ways Superman is not. Omni-Man would find trouble keeping up with the ruler of Apocalypse. When the dust settles, Darkseid is winning that fight. Superman would have an arguably easier time with a villain swap, having to do battle with the closest people Nolan has villains. While Omni-Man fighting Superman's rogues would have a gauntlet of World Ender after World Ender, and even the smaller scaled issues would be a threat, it's not a fair trade. Like what you saw? Click the video above for more.